With the national school closures and lockdown due to the coronavirus, it is unlikely that we'll see extramural activities at schools continue. And that's quite sad. But we do understand that it's important to focus on the academic calendar and the academic material, ensuring that that is sorted out. But what about the children that still want to be part of a team sport or just want to do something else instead of just their academic year or the academic materials? So in this week's episode, I talked to Colin Webster. Colin is a board member of the International Esports Federation and General Secretary of Mind Sports South Africa. And the two of us spoke about esports. What is esports? How can schools get involved by starting their own esports clubs? And I think it's very important that schools start thinking of these alternative ways in which we can give exposure to children to the social elements of being involved in sports, but also to balance that with their academic life. But as you know, kids in general love playing computer games. So why not try and incorporate that in the school? And if you just think about the prize money that schools can win because of their participation in esports, it makes absolute sense that schools start getting involved in esports. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinion about everything we spoke about in today's episode. Hi, my name is Francois Nordia and I am a super teacher, and this is Super Teachers Unite, the show that's all about motivating, inspiring and supporting teachers. I'm excited for today's guest. I have with me Colin Webster. Colin is a board member of the International Esports Federation as well as the General Secretary of Mind Sports South Africa. Colin, welcome on our show.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
Before we jump into our interview, this episode is brought to you by wiltracker.com, WILtracker.com. It is a platform made for student teachers and mentor teachers as well as university evaluators. We know that our super teachers start their journey at university level and they need support from mentor teachers. So wiltracker.com is the platform where student teachers, mentor teachers, and university lecturers come together, especially in this time when we don't know whether our student teachers are going to get back into the classroom. We need to start mentoring our teachers online. So if you'd like to get involved either as a student teacher or as a mentor teacher or a university lecturer, go and check out worldtracker.com. And then for everybody joining us in the live audience, it's great having you here. Please make sure that you go and vote in our poll. You'll see at the bottom of your screen, there's a little button that says poll. Please go and vote there. Colin and I will be doing the Design a Lesson Challenge at the end of today's episode, where we're going to try and incorporate two separate subjects into a new, exciting topic for a lesson. But we need the audience's participation there. So in our polls, please go and vote for the subjects that you would like us to incorporate, and as well go and vote for the phase of schooling that you'd like us to direct our lesson at. If you are watching this on all of the other platforms, I know Mind Sports South Africa is busy streaming this on all of their other social media platforms. Welcome to all of you. If you'd like to be part of the live studio audience in the future for any of the other shows that we do, just send me a WhatsApp. We've got a WhatsApp hotline for teachers where we share early access and discounts to teachers and professional development workshops and other resources for teachers. But that's also the platform that we use to share the links to these types of interviews. So please just send me a WhatsApp, send me your name to +27 63 681 6410. I'm just going to repeat that. That's +27 63 681 6410. Once I've received your name, you become part of the database. Remember, it's not a WhatsApp group. You won't be receiving other people's information or other people's messages and memes. You will just have a direct contact line to me. If you're a teacher and you need support or you need assistance with anything, just pop me a voice note or something on that WhatsApp service and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Colin, with all of our housekeeping out of the way, I'm very excited to chat with you. Please, can you just maybe give us an introduction to what is Mind Sports South Africa?
Right. Well, Mind Sports South Africa is a non-profit association which is made up by member clubs and caters for a number of different mind sports. We don't look after chess. That's the first question everybody
Hmm.
asks, because obviously chess is looked after by Chess South Africa.
Okay.
However, we do drafts, checkers, backgammon, maraba rubber, Sesotho maraba rubber. Those are the board games. We do esports, which is also a huge field at the moment. And of course, we do uh, tabletop figure gaming, um, which was basically the core business of when Mind Sports started, which now is very much pushed to the side.
Okay.
The National Federation is in fact a founding member of SASCOC, um, and is in terms of the Sport and Recreation Act, the national federation that is responsible for the award of regional, provincial, national, and Protea colors to people who play the different games that we promote.
Okay, hold on. I need to know this now. Can you get South Africa like Protea colors for playing Maraba Raba?
Yes, in fact, you
That
can. Uh,
that's amazing.
Well, yeah, it took a lot of work actually, because we had to deal with back in those days some very, shall we say, verkramped people.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
But
get.
yes, you're right. Yeah, we so in fact, Mind Sports South Africa awarded Protea, well, shall we say, Springbok colours from 1991 to 1994, and then from 1994 onwards, it awarded Protea colours. In fact, if all those devotees of the film Invictus, Mind Sports South Africa was present at that meeting where the fate of the Springbok was decided.
Oh wow! So this isn't just a little federation or little association that I'm interviewing today. This is quite you guys have quite a big footprint, and I remember reading, because I know a lot of the focus is on esports and a lot of people want to focus on esports, but Mind Sports South Africa has got a vast history, and I think you said the first like games or so was done in 1998.
Yes, that's the first time that Mind Sports South Africa did an esport tournament. Obviously, the war games and the board games precedes that, but from an esport point of view, our first championships, which was the Gauteng Championships in 1998, was done at the Old Edwardian Society, and that was done in Warcraft 3,
Oh
a
wow!
game that yeah, we all quite enjoyed at the time.
Very few of the youngsters would remember Warcraft 3. They might be more familiar with World of Warcraft, but there was actually a Warcraft 3, and even before that, just plain Warcraft.
Well, that's right, yes. And in fact, Dota is a development of Warcraft.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yes.
That's very cool. I want to just touch back on maybe the older games before we jump into esports. I mean, just already hearing from about Maraba Raba and thinking about the indigenous knowledge systems and including an indigenous game like that. In what would be seen more like a Western cultural driven type of environment. I'm very excited to hear a bit more about Maraba Raba and the background on getting that as part of the association.
Right. Well, when we founded Mind Sports South Africa, which was back in 1985, it had its roots at Wits University, which is the oldest club in the country. Mm-hmm. And that was founded by myself and an educator who now is teaching at Rodin, Dorian Love. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. But
I see he's in the live studio audience as well. So a big shout out to Dorian.
Right. Yeah, big shout out. And back in those days when we drafted the constitution for Mind Sports South Africa, we slapped in board games and we slapped in computer gaming without, I think, really realizing the full potential. So we were approached Well, I always liked Marubba Rubber. I did quite a lot of work in the townships back in the late 80s and early 90s, and the game just grabbed my attention. So we pushed that quite hard, and we managed to actually get that properly structured and formalized so that Protea colors could be given. And the first team that we sent out was in 1996 to the Tefisa World Games and Sport Festival in Bangkok in Thailand, which Danny Jordan was the chef de mission. And of course, it just gave so many more people an opportunity to excel in something in which they already did do, and in something in which they already did do well.
Yeah, and what's I'm pleading my ignorance here. Is there like a Marubba Rubber league like between schools?
No, there isn't one in between schools. That's something where we've battled to get it going. We have had teachers come in and out that have always been keen on getting it going, but where we do have obviously Marubba Rubber at all our regional, provincial, and national championships. Okay. So that we actually bus in children for that, and we actually help quite a lot.
That's absolutely amazing. I want to commend you on the work that being done on that front. That's awesome. And then, but now another thing that you mentioned is that you guys are not arranging all of the chess arrangements, but your logo, if I look at it, has got the two knights back to back. What's the story there?
Oh, right. Well, that's actually very interesting. Back in 1991, we were asked by the International War Games Federation to send a team across to the World Championships. At that stage, of course, there was a moratorium for South African sportsmen going across, and we were caught a little bit off, off foot. But what happened was we didn't really have a very good logo at the time, and we approached the State Herald, who was Fred Brownell. And he actually came up with this logo. Now, Fred Brownell is, of course, responsible for the new South African and the new Namibian flags. Mm-hmm. This logo, he uses the knight chess piece because that's an international symbol for Army Battle School. Yeah. Back to back because it's a game involving more than one player, and within the circle, showing that it's a game which subscribes to a very strong rule set.
That's amazing. So that I think it's time that we start talking about esports, because there's a lot of I think interest that's coming from teachers, and I've dealt with a few teachers in the last 3 months that are asking me, like, how do we get involved with esports, or how do we start esports at schools? But maybe before we get there, Colin, how would you describe esports?
Well, esports it's a very broad topic. What we look at is obviously it's any game that's played on an electronic device, whether it be a personal computer, a console, mobile phone, or similar. It's a very broad topic in terms of what is an esport. What we're more concerned with in Mind Sport South Africa, as well as the International Esports Federation, is which games have a level playing field, which games are actually fair to both sides who are playing, to all the participants, in order to make it a true esport and not just a recreational game.
Yeah, I can think that one of the major issues is the games that have got pay to win type of strategies in them. That the more you invest in the game, the more likely you are to win. So I like this fact of trying to find a sport or a game that's on equal footing. That no matter your background or your socioeconomical status, that if you participate in the game, it comes down to sheer skill.
That's right. Well, that's actually very important, and that's what makes an esport as opposed to just a recreational game, as I said before.
So how do you even decide on which games are allowed or become part of Mind Sports South Africa and which ones don't?
Well, obviously, we allow our member clubs to actually advocate which game titles they want to see. And the management board actually looks at it very critically. First and foremost, we always take the game titles that IESF is going to be using at a world championship. So that's the most important, because we want to be able to compete effectively on an international stage and give everybody the opportunities that come out of that. Then we start looking at the other games which are popular, but as I say, we pay a great deal of attention to the games as to make sure that they actually have equal starting blocks.
Okay, and which titles are currently a part of this table? Which are the more popular games?
Oh well, the most popular games. Well, let's just do the games that we actually do. So we do a number of different games which we class into genres, but we do FIFA 2020, we do PES 2020. Those are the two football games. Mm-hmm. We do Hearthstone, which is a card game. We do Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, League of Legends, Defense of the Ancients, better known as Dota, Counter-Strike, Paladins, and Clash Royale, which is a mobile.
Okay, no Candy Crush.
no Candy Crush.
So no, but I think the thing is, if I look from a teacher's point of view, especially if you look at South African teachers, the age category of many of our teachers are skewing much older, and we are more traditionally viewed at the typical extramural activities: rugby, netball, hockey, those type of on the field sports or team sports, tennis, squash, maybe even, and that's for a long time been traditionally the extramural activities that teachers get involved in. I think that a majority of our teachers are now wondering, especially with COVID-19 and social distancing, what's going to happen in the second semester of this year if we can't have our rugby matches and our netball matches and so forth. That esports might be a good alternative. Do you agree with that?
Look, I believe esports is a wonderful alternative. And don't forget, I'm part of a generation that didn't grow up around computers. I myself was a competitive swimmer when I was at school mm-hmm. and at university. However, when you look at esports, it's actually, I think, a fundamental building block for many of the children today, because it actually teaches them skills that they require within the digital world. Most of the people that we've had come through our Protea teams have gone on to go into programming or to go into even artificial intelligence, which is the way of the future. I mean, my son always tells me, because he's big into this sort of thing, that in 20 years' time, a number of professions, lawyers, accountants may all be obsolete. That'll all be done by artificial intelligence. So what you're going to need is people who are able to program.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. When we look at artificial intelligence, we know that a lot of the tasks of certain jobs are going to become automated. So it's not necessarily that the individual job will be lost, but that a lot of the job's tasks would be automated. and then what is left of that job doesn't require thousands of people to do that, where you can. So I agree with you. You'll have a big cut of certain professions, but in the same vein, artificial intelligence will most likely create a whole set of new jobs that we don't know of today. I mean, 10 years ago, you would have never thought that there would be something like a social media manager in the first place. But with the advent of technology, new jobs create, and if we don't expose children to that world, currently, we are doing them a disservice. And getting involved into esports is like that first bridge or that door into that world.
Well, definitely. From my work that I've done on International Esports Federation, you'll see worldwide how the entire the industry around esports has blossomed, which has created many jobs. I mean, even in South Africa, for example, with our Protea team, we have wellness coaches, we have all these different aspects which you would find with, say, the Springbok rugby team or the Protea swimming team. So it does create a lot more opportunity for people. And when you start looking at, in fact, the gaming industry alone, for example, in South Korea, the South Korean government gives over $1 million a year to the National Federation in order to help stimulate esports, because the publishers based in South Korea bring in over $3 trillion in tax to the state. So just the publication of games is a way that a country can actually uplift its economy.
And I think that's very future forward type of thinking, and it's not like regressive thinking that we see in many governments. That that this is typically seen as a lesser focus, or people that participate in online gaming are typically seen as nerds in culture and been looked down upon. When in actual fact, when you look at just even the prize money being given at these international esports championships, it blows your mind to think about the prize money that's involved.
Yes, well, of course, the prize money is always paid to the clubs, and the players themselves get salaries and work very hard for their salaries. They've got quite a lot of stipulations in their own contracts in order to get paid. But what you're looking at, just from a South African point of view, the fact that children now can get provincial and national and Protea colours for esports, and in fact they've got Protea colours for esports since 2005. Many children actually can go to university on a sports bursary. UJ itself has given sports bursaries to members of our Protea team in the past. Wits has given, come laude blues to esports players. And this helps build up the character of the individual, and of course helps the individual become a profitable member of society. I mean, you can get prize money. You can have it today and it'll be gone tomorrow. But you have an education. You've got it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that as teachers, we realize that there are alternative routes to success. I feel for many of us, almost this dream is being sketched that you have to do well in grade 12. You have to get X amount of distinctions. You have to get into university because getting a degree is your pathway to success. But that's not the story for all of our learners. And if you think about what our kids are interested in, I mean, it's such an issue and such a hassle to get their minds away from their cell phones and to have them pay attention in classes, that these kids would, on a whim, if you tell them to rather, I don't know, go onto Fortnite in the builders mode and build something, or go onto Minecraft and build something for their homework activity, they jump at that and engage more regularly with you in using games like that instead of doing the typical type of homework.
Well, yes. I think it's just really meeting people with, with what they actually interested. I think one of the big problems is that, when I was at school, we all got told what to do. But it's a different world today where people have a choice. People don't have to play a physical sport anymore. They can just do nothing. And I think that's the big advantage of esports again, because introducing an esports club into a school basically means that you're tying the people, the learners into the culture of the school. You are teaching them a bit more about being socially active and socially responsible. Some of the schools where we actually have esports clubs actually make it a condition that in order to play esports for the school, you have to play sport at some level, whether it's Cake League or the highest possible level, but you've got to do a physical sport as well. And we actually think that that's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. That balanced approach, that you're not just one dimensional, but you get exposure to the different fields. Colin, if I'm a teacher at a school and I really want to start an esports club at my school, how would I go about it?
Oh, that's very easy. All you have to do is contact Mind Sports South Africa and we'll send you all the documentation. I know we send far too much documentation, but it's very easy. It basically is as simple as filling in a one-page form and sending it back to us with the principal's approval. It's really that easy. We know the burden that teachers have, and boy, I think all of us, well, especially me. I mean, I was not a particularly good student. I certainly wasn't a very good scholar, but we do know how tough it is for the teachers, because you have to put up with people like me. So yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible.
So how would I go about determining which kids would want to be part of that? Is it just a matter of at assembly one day saying, listen, if anybody is playing FIFA, let me know because we want to start an esports club? How would you as a teacher go about that?
Yeah, sure. That's all you have to do is stand up and say who plays computer games and who would like to represent the school in these different game titles. It might only be that you have got FIFA players or PES players. It might be that you've only got, Dota. That doesn't matter. But you can start with one title, or you could do all the different titles. I mean, if you take Northcliffe High School, they've actually entered teams into every single game title that we actually offer. And they do very well. And in fact, their school club has run successfully since 2010.
Which is absolutely amazing. And I think that's for a teacher that just wants to start off, I think doing a survey at your school and just finding out what games kids play and whether they want to represent the school. I can't think that a teacher won't get support from the kids. But that brings up another question. Do you see that the teachers are driving the esports club, or do they kind of veto it over to a parent to start running that?
Well, funny enough, Northcliffe is a very interesting case. Nolene du Toit is absolutely exceptional. But what she does is she just oversees it. She actually lets the esports athletes themselves run it. And they do very well.
And that's amazing because you're also teaching some leadership skills, some organizational skills, having them form their own club and it's like democratizing the process, which is good for our kids.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, what you'll find is that, some years, yes, there'll be a bit of a dearth at the school, as there's new leaders coming to the fore. But the school has played consistently well in all our tournaments. And for a number of years, I think for the past 4 years, has been the top esports school in the country.
That's absolutely amazing, and I've seen that on your blog posts you keep the ranking of schools and ranking of individual players for every one of the different games, which I think is absolutely amazing. And I think I saw on one of the ranking lists there's a school in Vogwel, and it looks like it's like one of these remote schools in Vogwel participating. So I was blown away by that.
Yes, I know. Well, you see, this is the big advantage of esports as well. You can have a school like RTS Clarksdorp, which has produced a champion. I mean, last year he won a 30,000 Rand bursary from Northwest University. He's only in grade 10, I think. So he's hoping to win it again this year, next year, so that he's actually got his entire university paid for. But a school like that can compete against a school like St. John's or King Edward's, Paul Riz Gymnasium, without actually incurring a huge cost. I mean, if that school had to then say, well, we're going to play cricket against King Edward's, that would almost be an insurmountable problem, because King Edward's is just so far advanced. So it gives a school the opportunity to become a giant killer in a new sport. And as long as they've got an educator who is interested and organized.
Yeah, I like that, especially now. And one of the predictions we have, especially post-lockdown, is that many of our private schools are going to downsize extremely on not only personnel, but we'll see this cascading effect of, your higher fee-paying private schools, the parents not being able to afford that, moving their kids down into a lower fee-paying private school, and many of the low fee-paying private schools moving their kids back into the public sector. So basically, many of these new private schools or smaller private schools won't have enough kids to formulate a 15-person or 17 or 23-person rugby team or a 15-person netball team. It would be extremely difficult to get those types of numbers together to have a really competitive a sports team. But if they do esports, the teams, if I understand it correctly, are quite small, and you also have a lot of individual games that kids can participate in.
That's right. So you have the team games such as Dota, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Paladins, which are only require 5 players each, and then you have the individuals, which are Clash Royale, your football games, Hearthstone, Tekken, and Street Fighter. So you're actually accommodating the person who's more individualistic as well as the person who wants to be part of a team.
No, that's amazing, and thank you for that. I think there's a lot of value for our teachers, and definitely something that they can get involved in, and just spread your mind a little bit and think about the different options that you can do at school. Colin, I want to move over to you and ask you a few personal questions, if you don't mind, because it's important for us as educators and as young people to look up to people who are in these prestigious positions that are making things happen. Because I believe something like Mindsport South Africa didn't just happen on its own, and everything that you're involved with didn't just happen on its own. How did you get involved with Mindsport South Africa in the first place?
Well, Dorian knows the answer to that. I was an avid war gamer, still am actually.
It seems like we lost Colin, and isn't it ironic that the first moment we start speaking about the individual that we lose them? I'm just wondering if it's his connection or mine. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll figure it out. While we're waiting for the connection to be reestablished, just a reminder about our sponsor. Go check out World Tracker, wiltracker.com. If you're a student teacher or you are a mentor teacher or a university evaluator of teachers, go check out World Tracker. I'm going to try and see if Colin's reaching out to me on WhatsApp, just to reestablish our connection. These type of things happen, especially I'm surprised that we went 30 minutes without having a challenge like this. But in the meantime, if you haven't voted in our poll yet, we'll see if we can get Colin back. If you haven't voted in our poll, if you're part of our live studio audience, please go and vote in our poll for the subject as well as the phase of schooling that you'd like us to include. Please go and vote there. If you've got any questions for Colin, please put it in the Ask a Question button at the bottom, and I'll make sure that I ask those questions to Colin. Let's just see if I can re-invite him back on stage. Let's try that. Okay, Colin will join us again. Just a reminder that you can send me a WhatsApp if you'd like to be part of our studio audience for future events. And if you would like assistance with teaching, you can send me a WhatsApp. That number +27 63 681 6410. It looks like we've got Colin back. Colin, can you hear me?
Yes, I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry.
That's not a problem. We've got you back, and that's all that matters. Please continue and tell us how you got involved with, and we'll start at MSSA.
Right. Sorry. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. If you can just...
Okay, right.
Great.
Okay. Well, basically, the way I got involved is I was an avid wargamer. Dorian and I used to play war games incessantly at university. We got tired of playing against each other, and we decided to form a club to get more people to play against. It was basically that simple. Unfortunately, what happened is that getting involved in starting a club and starting Mind Sports South Africa, we actually had very less and less time to play as we had to do more and more of the work, which, to be quite honest, the work has become a bit of a passion of mine. From a point of view that I've actually seen how it has affected people and how many people have benefited from it. So you know, it's just moving on from really playing a lot to just seeing the bigger picture, seeing what it can actually do for other people.
So it's such an example of people following their passion and their hobbies, and how that can be transformed and really making an impact on other people's lives. That if you like something enough, you will put in the energy and work your ass off just to make it work.
Well, yes, that's the thing, that you've got to actually be dedicated to it all the time. I mean, I put in hours every day just to make sure Mind Sports South Africa works. And sometimes, you know, with we all make mistakes, but that's the way it is.
And your involvement with the International Esports Federation, how did it happen that you got elected onto the board?
Well, as I said earlier, I come from a sporting background, so I know how important it is for people to have that sort of structure. And the benefits that actually accrue therefrom. So back in the early days of esports, there just wasn't an international structure for esports. So when one was founded in 2008 in South Korea, it was, you know, a no-brainer that Mind Sports South Africa should actually affiliate. And in fact, at that stage, Mind Sports South Africa was the only national federation for esports that was actually recognized by its National Olympic Committee and by the government. So we actually predate all the other recognized national federations. So we got involved there. At first, the constitution, the statutes of IESF were very, shall we say, Korean in nature. So it took up until 2013 for a number of amendments to be made so that it became far more of a democratic process. Then I served a brief spell as president from 2018 to the beginning of this year as president, just as a caretaker. And basically, Mind Sports South Africa is very happy being in IESF and participating. We're the only federation that has actually had female members of our team in every single team since 2012 at World Championship level. And we've attended every single World Championship that has been held.
Well, that's amazing, and having that equality and giving opportunity to girls as well. That's really something that esports typically lacks, because it was for a long time very male driven, and I think a major part of esports is still focused on males and males as the audience. But I know I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and I've seen a lot of female streamers coming to the fore, and also female champions for certain of the leagues, and it really is important to have that representation. Colin, I'm picking up a lot of feedback on our call. I'm wondering whether we can maybe just refresh the browser that we are in, just to sort out a little a technical kink. So I'm going to refresh on my side, and would it be possible for you to refresh on your side also?
Sure. Okay.
So just bear with us while we sort out this little technical issue. Okay, I seem to be back. Hopefully that reverb or has been solved. Having the internet connectivity that we have is quite a challenge, but it should be sorted now. Let me see if I can just invite Colin back on. There we go. There. Thank you for that, Colin. It should have sorted out
Right.
the echo that would have been explained. Colin, I ask all of my guests this question. I'm very interested to hear what you'd say. What would you deem to be your superpower?
My superpower.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have one. What happened there?
No, we still have you.
Yeah. Well, superpower. I suppose just. I suppose a skin as thick as a rhino.
That's impenetrable. An impenetrable skin, and I think that's important for somebody in a position like you, because there might be a lot of people not happy with the decisions being made in your position. You'll need a thick skin like that.
Yes. No, I've certainly. I think I've annoyed a fair amount of people in my time.
And you can't just let that get in your way of the greater goal.
No. You got to look at it and say, what's the benefit? I mean, for example, we've had youngsters who, once they got their Protea colors playing for the team, have been given offers to go and play for foreign teams, and they've done very well, having gone off, got bursaries to go to foreign universities, and they've just never come back. For example, Dorian is fully aware of a youngster. We've had Jason Batsifin, who, when he was in matric at St. John's, became elected as the athlete's representative onto the IESF, and he has traveled to more countries than I can remember offhand. And as a result, he's doing very well for himself in England. So the benefits are huge. And I think that is really what you're looking at. You're looking at what can esports do for not just the individual, but for society and for the country. and that's the goal in mind.
Yeah. Excellent. Colin, tell us a story about one of your own teachers. If you could identify a super teacher that had an impact on your life, tell us about them.
Oh, I think the teacher that had most impact in my life was Mrs. Sarkis, our math teacher in that I had for back then in Standard 9 and Standard 10. You see, that dates me. But yeah, she was a fantastic teacher, and she really made me work. At that stage, I mean, I was training every morning, for swimming. Preschool, so I always used to get to school late. They had cycle tests at school, which I often used to miss because I was swimming. and the one day she actually made me write the test, and she just looked at me and she said, no, this is not acceptable. You had better pull up your marks. And she was a fantastic teacher. She was a great motivator. She could educate, and she had a great deal of faith in people. So she was I will always remember her very dearly.
That's amazing. And I love asking this question to my guests because we get to see what the characteristics of a super teacher really is from different people's perspectives. And I really take my hat off to your teacher for believing in you. And I truly feel that these teachers have an impact, a lasting impact on our lives that shape our future in some way or another. So thank you for sharing that anecdote from your teacher. We've got 2 questions from the audience that I'm going to ask you now. But before we do that, if you are in our live audience, please make sure that you go and vote in our polls, because we'll be doing the Design a Lesson Challenge directly after these 2 questions. But let's see. Colin Henry asks, no first-person shooters. Why no first-person shooters in your list?
Oh no, there's Counter-Strike, Go, and there's Paladins. What you've got to be aware of is that MindSports South Africa, as an official body, has to pay very careful attention to age restrictions. Mm-hmm. So, when you say, if teachers have to say, well, who wants to play esports for their school, and you're going to get a whole lot of kids sticking up their hands saying, me, I want to play Fortnite, for example. Yeah. Unfortunately, Fortnite does have a slightly higher age group than what many, and many of the children that are playing it should not be playing it.
Yeah.
So we can't actually allow children to play a game on a competitive level, on an official competitive level, for which they are not qualified.
Yeah, of course, we have to think of the best interest of the kids as well. So you don't typically want to include that. I wanted to ask this question about how about primary schools, like more like your foundation phase, the very young kids. Is there titles available or leagues available for them?
Yes. For example, we have been looking at that. At the moment, there's only really a couple of games. But for example, you're looking at the football games, you're looking at Hearthstone, and you're looking at, Clash Royale, I think, has an age restriction of 12. So that's your older primary school child.
Okay, so I think that one of the areas, because I had teachers speaking to me about wanting to have like their grade 3s competing in some form. Some of them have asked about Minecraft and if there's a way of possibly including Minecraft in some of the things that they do.
Well, sure. You see, this is why it's so important to have the schools become members, because we like to see MSSA as purely a vehicle. Which actually the members drive. So what you would have is, if primary schools affiliate, you would have the teachers saying, well, this is what we want. We would try and look at the best possible way of making sure that it happens.
Okay, thank you for that. Then Helen asks, what logistics would the school need to provide, and how much time per day or week do learners participate?
Well, it's like anything. If you want to do it well, it should be well structured. And I think that's the important part. It's one thing to just sit on a computer playing a game for endless hours. It doesn't mean that you're going to be good. You need to have a coach. You need to have a structure to it. So it's better to have less time, but well structured, than to have endless hours. So it depends on what games that a school wants to get involved in. You'll find that there's a very low level that's required for the games that we do have in terms of processing power. If you're looking at obviously the console games, which are Tekken, Street Fighter, FIFA and PES, obviously you need to have a PlayStation, but one PlayStation can actually accommodate 20 or 30 children. So that's a very small cost, compared to maintaining a cricket field.
Yeah, definitely. If you have to compare those type of expenses, that's not a challenge whatsoever. But of course, internet connectivity, I think, is one of the major hurdles, I think, for schools to get involved.
Yes, definitely. But I mean, there again, there are companies with which we deal that are very keen on getting schools to have better internet connectivity, and sometimes actually do it purely for educational purposes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think one thing that lockdown has shown us is how important it is for schools to have connectivity to the internet. And I think what's going to happen is there's going to be this accelerated push towards schools getting some internet connectivity. And of course, the I almost want to say the collateral damage of that is that schools would be able to start participating in esports. One last thing that I'd like to just throw in the mix is I'm very interested about the ecosystem around the players. Instead of just focusing on the players, and this is something that schools don't necessarily always think of, is the almost want to say the reporting around it. Having school newspapers or school blogs writing articles about the kids, having sportscasters, people being like basically commentators on the games. Those are all options for kids to get involved in, even if they don't play the game.
Yes, definitely. I mean, what you need for an esports team is exactly what you would need for any other team. So, for example, at MindSports South Africa, our blog is available to any of our members to put articles up on. It can be that they promote the school, promote the team, as long as it's somehow related to their membership to us. Then what you're looking at as well is on our channel, we actually allow member schools, and we've actually advocated this for many years, because we ran a channel on Tulu, where we actually advertised this to all the schools, to actually encourage their media centers to do their own reporting on their teams, to interview the players, to get presenters, to get producers, because by the time that the children then leave school, they've in fact got a CV of what they've done, and in fact there is something up there and out there which shows just how well they've done it.
Having this portfolio of evidence of the work that they've done is so important.
Definitely.
All right, Colin, thank you for that. Please tell us, where can people get hold of you if they'd like to become an affiliated school? How do they get hold of you?
Well, okay, they can contact us on mindsportscorrespondence@gmail.com. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, or they can just contact me on WhatsApp which is obviously plus 27 78 069 3089.
Maybe just repeat that the telephone number for us.
So it's the WhatsApp is plus 27 78 069 3089.
Excellent. I really appreciate that, and I hope there's going to be a lot of teachers taking up esports. But one thing before we go is we've got this Design a Lesson challenge. Now, prior to this interview, I asked Colin if he were a teacher, what would be the subjects that he would have wanted to teach? And he said he would have loved to teach either history or English. Now, Colin, I've got good news for you that our audience has selected two subjects that we have to integrate, and that would be natural sciences, which is my forte, and English. So English, which is one of the subjects that you wanted to teach. So now we need to come up with a topic of a lesson that falls within natural sciences and English. And the phase of schooling it needs to happen in is further education and training. In other words, it's grade 10, 11, or 12. 10, 11, or 12. So I have to change natural science, and I'm going to veto it towards biology because that's my field of strength. So the two of us now have to incorporate English as well as biology, and I almost want to say, just to make it a little bit more interesting for us, also esports. How do we do that in a lesson, Colin? The audience, of course, you're more than welcome to comment in the chat to assist us on this.
Wow. Okay. You didn't make this easy at all.
No, not at all. Our audience, of course, wants to trick us into this or wants to challenge us severely, and I love it. So let's see. How will you even start to think about this, Colin?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, if you're studying biology, you need to have a good basis of English anyway, because you need to know all the Latin and Greek terms which are used.
So that's definitely one of the fields. So we're talking about taxonomy. So if you want to classify organisms, you need language to describe them. So that's very very interesting. I'm seeing Johan is mentioning something here. Use surgeon simulator in biology class to teach anatomy.
Well, yes, that would be. You know, you can get these simulations, or you could, in fact, quite frankly, try and encourage children to even perhaps program some sort of simple game which involves, you know, the dissection, I suppose, of the body.
So programming their own, because when you do programming and coding, you have to understand the language because it's got its own syntax and it's got its own language around coding. And I like this idea of using a simulator of sorts. So Johan, Surgeon Simulator, I'm not too up to scratch with all of the types of games out there, but Surgeon Simulator sounds like something I can definitely get involved with. And then you have anatomy, and anatomy, of course, requires you to know the language. But more importantly, if we take maybe a spin on creative writing, because that's part of the English language. If you look at many of the fantasy games, there's always a storyline attached to it. So that might be a way for a teacher maybe to assign an assignment to design a storyline for a specific video game.
Well, definitely, yes. I mean, I'm just thinking of my when I was back at varsity with Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, you do need a storyline, which I think would be a very good way of getting people to express themselves more eloquently. And then, of course, they would have to know the knowledge of the taxonomy themselves. You know.
So there you have it, a very quick brainstorming session around biology, English, and we try to incorporate some esports or some games. And what we've come up with is this little activity around creative writing, developing a storyline that can be used in, for instance, let's say, for instance, a hospital type of game where you've got surgeon simulator. And that on its own is a lot more exciting than trying to teach English creative writing just on its own and trying to teach anatomy on its own. You've integrated two subjects, and if I was a kid in that class, I would absolutely love that activity.
Definitely. It certainly is interesting, and it's not just random creative thinking, but something where people, although you wouldn't want it to be very shall we say, report writing, because I think that could get tedious, and very few children would be interested in that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It could be some form of narrative writing that you include. I see Johan says in the chat, Surgeon Simulator also has a multiplayer mode, so it has an element of communication from the English component. So that's very, very important, and it brings about collaboration, all of these 21st century skills that's important to schooling. So it's not only focusing on the content that should be taught, it's also learning some skills. Johan, thank you for your input there. Colin, thank you for spending time with us today. Really had a lot of fun learning about esports and MSSA.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been great. I enjoy chatting. So thank you.
It's great having you. Thank you to everybody who spent time with us today. If you like what we do here, make sure that you like and subscribe on all the different platforms. You can catch the recording of this. It'll go onto the Facebook page on Super Teachers Unite. It will go onto our YouTube channel at Super Teachers Unite, and also on our podcast, also called Super Teachers Unite. Thank you very much for spending time with us today. Remember, the whole mission here is to motivate, inspire, and support teachers so that we can unite under one banner, so that we can make a positive difference in each and every classroom. Until next time, my name is Francois Nordia, and with me, I've got Colin Webster, and we are Super Teachers.